Today we're visiting with Senator Pat Spearman in her first term.
Yes, ma'am.
And a fairly new resident in Nevada. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we'd just like to share a little of your background, and you have a rather interesting one.
Well, yes, ma'am. And I guess 7 years does qualify as a neophyte when you consider many of the people in this building have been here twice as long, or if not longer. So I came to Nevada actually when I retired from the military. My final assignment was at the Pentagon. It was very, very cold in Washington. And one of the things that I liked about Nevada, especially southern Nevada, is sunshine, you know, and for the most part warm weather. I also honestly really appreciate the pioneering spirit, the fact that most Nevadans are not afraid to push the envelope, to, you know, man of La Mancha, you know, go where the others dare not go. So, and I'm really pleased with my adopted state, and I am tremendously humbled by the opportunity to serve. I really am.
Well, it is an awesome body.
Yes, it is.
You have an awesome charge. Can I go back a little more in your background? Because one of the things I find that you're in military police.
Yes, ma'am.
And you're also a minister.
Yes, ma'am.
And so sometimes the combination of war or offense and a sort of a spiritual life might be a little bit in confrontation to each other in some people's mind.
Yeah, well, and that's true unless they go back and they look at King David, who was a very spiritual man, and in fact the Bible says that he was a man after God's own heart. Yet he was a very great warrior, and he was also a very great king. He was also a very great psalmist, very spiritual person. And I really see it not as in conflict with each other, but I really see it as a way to complement each other, because both of them are really about justice. So,
which leads to the other thing in your background, and then we'll get to the present session, is that you served as the chair of the school board?
Yes, I did, in San Marcos, Texas, and it was much like, the climate was much like it is here in Nevada, with respect to the fact that we were at that transition and transformational point. We knew that the education system had to change because it had to accommodate a constituency. We're talking about students basically now, had to accommodate a constituency that was not homogeneous. And whenever you get to that place where things have changed so much that what used to be considered the majority is now the minority, and the minorities are now the majorities, you have to step back a minute and see, so where do we go from here? And so we were wrestling with some of the same things that we are here in Nevada, cultural competency. How do we make sure that educators understand enough about the different cultures, ethnicities, and traditions of the students so that they can reach the students? We also wrestled with buildings and infrastructure where we didn't have enough. One of the junior high schools, the kids in there, the students only had like about 7 or 8 minutes to eat by the time, you know, everybody kind of went through, and so it was much the same. We also had the dilemma of trying to adequately compensate educators. And, you know, I was a teacher before I went into the service. My grandmother was a teacher. I have a lot of friends who are teachers. And I don't know of anyone who teaches for the money. I really don't. You know, everybody that's there, you know, well, I'll put it like this, 99% of them, you know, feel that they're called to do that. But we also have to adequately compensate them, and we have to treat them with the professionalism that they deserve. Most of the teachers that I met during the campaign, and even before that I talked to, most of them have spent as much time getting their education preparedness, if you will, as a first-year law student.
Mhm.
And many of them have the type of debt that looks like they went to law school. But when you put that in juxtaposition with the pay and in juxtaposition with the way we treat them, then it shows a certain amount of, it shows a lot of inequity. And while I'm there, if I can just say this, there's a lot of talk about teacher accountability.
Yes.
And, you know, there are people, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but there are people who believe that we can fix the system with teacher accountability by, you know, establishing rules and rubrics that say master teachers can do A, B, C, and D, and then those who are deficient, you know, can't do A, B, C, and D. But here's the thing that I want to keep at the forefront. We're not funding education in a manner that allows educators to do their job. And so right now, without putting the type of revenue into education that needs to be there, you don't know who's good and who's not.
And if I might just add a question to it, when you have sometimes 30% of a classroom changing within a year, or going to a different school each year, how do you measure teacher accountability?
Yeah. Well, and you can't, you know, I use the metaphor of this, you know, if we try to put accountability standards in place now without adequately funding education so the class sizes are reduced, we've got to reduce class size, and we have to make sure that every student has a desk to sit at. And we have to make sure that the books that they read are the latest edition. And we have to make sure that every student has a book. Now, I know that there are those who would probably feel like that, you know, what I'm saying is not necessarily true. But this past Saturday, I sat in a meeting with a group of students who told me, Senator, sometimes when I go to school in the morning, I'm hoping that people are absent. You're hoping that people are absent? Yeah. Why? Well, because if somebody's absent, then I know I'll have a seat. And someone else said, you know, in my classes, you know, most of my classes, students are standing around the wall or either sitting on the floor. And we're talking about teacher accountability, and we don't have desks for students, and we don't have books for students. We're talking about teacher accountability when we do not have, you know, nurses in the schools. Like when I was going to school, you had a nurse. Yeah, I mean, you had an RN. We're talking about teacher accountability when we have, in my district, there was a suicide at Legacy High School. Most of the counselors, because of the emphasis on passing the standardized test, most of the counselors are forced to focus on academics. And so when, you know, students come in, if they have a different kind of problem, maybe they'll have the time to talk with them, maybe they won't. But if we fund education at the level that it ought to be funded, we will have the proper complement of counselors and students. We will have ancillary staff in there to support the student success that we continue to say we want. And so unless we fund it the way it needs to be funded, I don't support any type of accountability. It's like giving a neurosurgeon a steak knife and a can opener, telling them to go into surgery and then being surprised at the results.
You have obvious passion. So what is it that brought you to run for office?
This very thing, and I am passionate as well about equality for all. I believe that not just the Constitution, but I believe that there's a higher power. When we were created all of us equal. And all of us should have the same opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not only that, everyone should have equal access under the law and equal protection under the law. And there are some people, as I said before, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but there's some people who believe that, you know, there's liberty and justice for all, but it's just all of this category, not everybody. And so I really wanted to be in a position to where I could do some things that would give voice to the voiceless, that would speak to the issues of those citizens who are in the margins, so to speak. The first bill that I've introduced, and I'm hoping that it will come up for a vote very soon, is the bill to extend protection under the law, under the hate crimes bill, to transgender persons.
Right.
And, you know, I know some people say, well, they don't. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I also believe in a woman's right to choose. There's just no way that you can say to a woman, you know, these circumstances exist, but we're going to ignore that, and now you do what I say. Because I believe that is something that is deeply personal, and it's really between, you know, the woman, her God, and whoever the significant other people are in her life. I also believe that we have to be good stewards of the environment. I was a little bit disappointed, to say the least, about the vote that was taken last year or last session to pull Nevada out of the Lake Tahoe compact. And so, you know, education, you know, is my primary focus in trying to make sure that we fund that at a level that the students can be successful and teachers can be professional, but also equality. Equality. Everyone deserves equality. And if I can just back up here, when I was 7 years old, my mother and I and my siblings, we took a bus trip from Columbus, Ohio to Nashville, Tennessee. And every time we stopped, we couldn't get off the bus. And I didn't understand that. And my mother had this little bag that had some chicken in it and some bread and had a little bit of mayonnaise on it, you know, to keep the bread soft. And, you know, we didn't have bottled water during but, you know, okay, let's just make the best of what we have. And when we finally got to Nashville, I got off the bus and I said, I am thirsty. I'm 7 years old. I am thirsty. And my mom said, okay, we'll go and get a drink of water. Well, I'm looking at a water fountain over here and a water fountain over here, and the one over here is dirty, and I see a guy walk by and, you know, conjure up saliva, you know, to put it nicely, and spit in the water fountain. Well, I'm not going over there. I go over to the other one, and just as I got there and I got ready to take a drink, my mother grabbed me by the back of my neck and snatched me back. And she said, you can't drink from that one. And why? You have to drink from that one. And I'm looking, and this one says whites only, but the other one, to me, and I'm doing my phonics, you know, for color reds. Who are color reds? I'm not a color red. And she said, colored. I said, what does that mean? You know, white people are over here and colored people are over here. I said, but that's nasty. Well, this is the way we have to do it. I will always remember that. That's stuck in my mind, you know, for people to just arbitrarily decide that one person, one group of people was less than the other group of people. At 7 years old, that was a lesson in equality. It's got to be about